My mic is live. It's Sunday morning. Your mic's live as well. Hi, welcome to the Art of Rock. Hold on, I have to turn this thing on. It's really funny how my brain just goes into this deep cataclysmic sleep. Hi, welcome, Art of Rock. We're doing this. This is every Saturday, but it's not actually. It's starting up in March again because I'm going to Australia for the entire month of February to see my parents. And probably put out fires because they're firefighters and it's going to be good fun. This is made possible with Angelspit's Patreon. I'll go like and subscribe to Angelspit's Twitch, by the way. And we're doing an experiment today, and I'm going to try not to have a potty mouth because every time I have a potty mouth, Facebook goes, there's freedom of speech, but not that speech. Thank you. This is made possible by Angelspit's Patreon. Many members of here, and thank you for keeping me going, and I want to keep you guys going. We're keeping everybody going because it's bloody awesome. Angelspit's new single is called The Greatest Trick. The Greatest Trick. It's on Bandcamp. Go get it. And it's on Spotify on Monday, so you can hear it for free. Ice Rings is the new one from Ice Planet 9000. I would like to have a rant at this point. This is the video right there. It's pretty cool. Go check it out. Bet Noir has just bought out the Deserts of Ruin. It's on Spotify. It's really good. And somebody please tell me why Bet Noir has released 2 singles and has 5,000 monthly plays and has done no advertising and no pimping. Just like Carl has been on Bet Noir's case, but you should tell me why the bastard has 5,000 monthly plays. On the subject of excellent music, Industrial Incision's playlist, go listen to it. It's a whole bunch of new bands and a whole bunch of classic favorites. Go listen to it. Many of those artists are here. Speaking of excellent music, non-stop amazingness from the bleeding edge is MTV TV, who just turned 2. Go listen to it. And we're going to zoom to that once we're done. I mean, Raid, you know what it is. You know what we're talking about. And the hugest congratulations to 2 years of rock on MTV TV. They also have a Patreon. You can check that out. That's going to keep them going, and it's going to keep everybody's going. And somebody put a link in there. What is that?
It's a chord maker. It's really good.
Thanks.
And it's like free, like, and it's nice.
All right, groovy. It makes nice chords.
And it helps you to like step through modes and everything.
All right.
While you're building your chord progression, so you can actually make music more interesting.
That sounds really, really interesting. And heck, let's all about the education and the learning and everything. Somebody brought up experimental music. Somebody else got a gong, a singing bowl. Give it a bang, Ivan. Look at that thing. I really like that version. It distorted. That's beautiful.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
And the sustain on it. The sustain on it is crazy.
So is the distortion. Yeah, and I said put some water in it so it'll go and just let it move around. Water, man, it's the great modulator. Somebody needs to come up with water as a form of modulation in modular synthesis. It's just beautiful. Let's talk about experimental.
You could do that with a chaos pad.
Yeah, kind of. But what frequencies? What is it actually doing? Like, what is? We're talking about experimental music. After we, thank you for offering me that. Talking about experimental music, Razzie brought it up. I'm going to throw it to you in a minute, Razzie. But okay, when water is moving around a bowl, it sounds like it's playing with the different partials. What's it doing?
You know, they have the other topic that I had sort of bookmarked was physical modeling, and there are physical models for things like a drum skin and a gong and a cymbal, and it seems like it's chaotic, but there is a way to model that action. But yeah, the water moving around, changing the resonance and damping at different points on the surface like that is, I mean, I haven't actually seen fluid as one of the modulators in a physical modeling synthesizer, but maybe you're onto something there.
Because what comes to mind instantly is you record it and then you vocode it. But I don't know how strong the frequency response is going to be. So, I don't know. That could be really interesting.
Yeah, it depends on the gong.
Yeah, and the
That's
water.
really cool. And the water.
So, experimental.
I have to try.
Yeah, give it a try, man. You've got a vocoder, don't you?
You've got one floating around here somewhere.
Excellent. It's always good to have a floating vocoder. It's like a floating rib. Rib's such a great word. We need to turn it into a swear. You rib! Turn it into a swear word.
Thought we were keeping this one clean. Whoa, rib.
I know! I'm straight into it. Facebook went, nah. He said rib. Aaron!
Yeah, along with the sound distortion, I mean, I really enjoyed, like, when you were touring, when you were doing all the madness, and then, you know, you'd pop in and say, you know, I'm in X state, but I went to a factory, you know, and I just started bashing the ever-loving insert expletive here out of metal machinery, or you were able to sample where you're at, or you were talking about the one that stood out and crept its way into Wicked Stories is talking about the hum from dead power lines as the wind cuts through it, and it's like this eerie guitar string that just radiates forever. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can tap into if you invest a little bit in a recorder, even use tech. I mean, heck, I'm doing stuff on a H4n, you know, and you'll be surprised what it picks up. But
That's actually really good,
I mean,
but keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think along with the water and the pan thing, which is the reason why dishes take exceedingly long, because I'm sitting there going, wow. I'm wondering, though, like, if you go to sample and record it, it's like there's no one to stop you from just doing, you know, oddball stuff with it. Like, you could be like, well, what's it sound like with soda in it? What's it sound like if I put cooking oil? What happens if it's a little more viscous? What happens to that sound? Plus distortion, plus flanger, plus everything. And you just might have, like, something completely off the wall, you know? And sometimes that's the breakout sound when people are like, well, how did Depeche Mode do X, Y, Z? Or, you know, how is this person doing this? It could be something, it could be as wonky as, like, the sound effects that you grew up with. Seems like this train's going off the rails, but you get what I'm going at. Like, there's no one that's going to kick down your door and be like, stop sampling, for the love of God. Unless it's your neighbor.
Yeah, and I'm banging things really loudly. I will say the new Angelspit single, The Greatest Trick, is a recording. We've got a small saucepan, and we've got this metal grate thing that you hang your saucepans off, and it's red. It's a very nice red, and it's just rocking backwards and forwards. Then I sampled that, played it down an octave, and also distorted it. And that's actually the rhythmic drive behind the song. And also the sound when you distort it, there's a certain pitch in there because it's metal on metal. So there is active pitch. And that became sort of like vaguely the center for the pitch of the entire track. So it was good fun. Mark, what are you thinking right now? You've got a very cheeky look on your face.
I'm thinking of saucepans.
What do you call them in America?
Saucepan. Or a skillet.
Saucepan. All right, well, it's not really a skillet, because skillets are like big, but they'd make a big, heavy sound.
Wait, are they not the same thing? What's the line choice? Okay, never mind. It's not really
A saucepan's a
Move
little
on.
one, you know, kind of that big or that big. A saucepan. That's my Australian accent.
Yes.
And I can try and Americanize myself some more, but I have to de-American myself because Mum and Dad are saying, "You sound like an American." Like, thanks, Mum and Dad. Like, I'm here trying to, like, translate everything I say into American, so it's difficult. But a saucepan or a saucepan, or if you're in New Zealand, it's a saucepan. I won't even try. Does anybody else want to jump on this? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about. Like, one thing I want to talk about is, for example, the VCS3. which is this beautiful old English analog, beautiful, weird, beautiful looking thing. It's a work of art, and it's the most simple. Hey Gorp 2, it's the most simple synthesizer. It's so simple, like 3 oscillators, ring modulator, a joystick, no keyboard, a ring mod, a great filter, really basic attack decay thing, and a great filter, but it makes the most random sound, and some other bits and pieces. And it's what's really interesting about it is I was looking at the pin board of it, and I've heard so many synthesizers try and do a VCS3 or an EMS, that synthy sound. Nothing does it. Nothing does it, and it's such a mystery to me why. I think it has a lot to do with, anyway, whatever. But I was looking at the pin board of it, because with the VCS3, it's not like everybody's looking at VCS3s right now. You stick pins in it, and pins make this analog, rudimentary electronic connection between this thing and this thing. And what's great is that because it's a pin matrix, and you can put the output along that input, and where they join, that's where you stick your pin. But that means that also your joystick can, for example, can route to a whole bunch of different things, because it can actually route to every single thing along the way of that pin. So I was looking at it, and I was looking at the sounds that these things make, and it sort of dawned on me is that the reason it has that sound is because of the pin board, and because of it's so easy to say, what happens if I patch the pitch, if I pin, as in source pin, the pitch, or if I pan the output of oscillator 2 into oscillator 3. So I'm frequency modulating, and it's just there, and it's got this massive crazy sound, like really, really, really crazy sound. And it was just really nice to look at it, and to look at its the thought pattern behind this bizarre synthesizer. Thank you, Ivan, again for throwing those harmonies, the chordal harmonies in there. Like, a question that comes to mind is, I'm working on a track right now, and it's moving between 2 chords. Those chords are D major, D, D's important, D, F sharp, and then B flat major. So it's B flat, D, F, and if you know much about music, you go, they're weird chords, and they are weird chords, but the wonderful thing about them is that D is being held down, and that when you go from D major to B flat major, the two notes on either side of you, because that D is not moving at all, are moving by a semitone, and the result is something very powerful. Because you think about it, it's kind of a movement in major thirds, because B flat major to D major, blah blah blah. But anyway, my point is that I was thinking that if I kind of had this, instead of going pla chord, is that if I just held this note, this D, and then I had the bottom and the top notes moving by semitones, so they would go to B flat and D major, B flat major, D major, while holding on that, and then I could be modulating that D. Because I was thinking, if I had a VCS3 mindset to this, how would that happen? And it was a really nice thought experiment, because I'm trying to get out of the chords thing, that it might become this swell of noise. Then when it dies down, you hear that there are chords there. Because I've had on order for like a million years, the dope for A188-2 bucket brigade delay thing. And it's bloody awesome, because you can achieve the most wondrous mayhem from that thing. Like absolutely fucking crazy. Penning crazy madness from that module. So there you go. Point being is that here's a strange synthesizer. What if I thought like that? And another fun one is also Buchla. You know, when you look at Buchlas, because, you know, the thing about Moogs is it's note. It's the concept of notes, and it's the concept of playing. But when you look at these other forms of synthesis that I don't care, it's going to be random every time. Here's Alex. You know, what can we do? What can we bring to that? How can we be inspired by that? You know, it's the same thing that you've got that bowl. And the cool thing about that bowl, you know, Resi, your amazing ear picked it halfway between a B and a C. So B and a C. So what would happen? What would happen if the core was A flat? So the bass is pounding away in an A flat. That means that if that bowl is halfway between a B and a C, that means that it's neither A flat major or A flat minor. So you're just playing this open fifth, and then the bowl is there just hovering halfway between the two. That's fun. Or you could also...
Instant tension.
Yeah. You can also do a really fun thing where instead of it being... Or you could do something on E flat. Bass is pounding away on E flat because... if you're kind of halfway between the C and the B on E flat, that's the sixth. Hold on, did I get my theory right? No, I totally got my theory wrong. 5. Yeah, that's the sixth, kind of. It's making it not clear. Because those notes always say, oh, this is the emotion you have to feel. But when you start throwing things in there that are unpitched... And of course you can do this in pop music or EBM, maybe not pop music, but EBM and industrial and whatever, because it's going to introduce this wonderful new vibe going on. Alex, how are you? We're talking about experimental music. And here is Aaron.
Hey, so yeah, I would think too, I mean, it bears repeating that sometimes less is more. If you start getting racked into like, dude, nothing's working, or I've got like 7 layers and it's starting to turn to mush, or I'm trying to get all of these things. Because yeah, like you hit on the head, Carl, when you talk about if you've got something going but it's all chords, or your brain's auto mapped directly into chords. I'm very thankful that like when I'm doing stuff for Grimm, if I'm just doing like a Halloween instrumental or a soundscape and having fun with it, a lot of the coolest horror soundscapes are very simple. So it might start out with just a string going thump, 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 thump. And then you add a little bit of an echo, or you add like a clang, 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 clang that parries with it. Then you add these rolling waves of all of this creepy lighter music, and you could really play with the dynamic. But who's to say that you can't wash in a song that way and then ramp up into all the chaos? Because it feels like we've been so ingrained and so programmed that the song is the song is the song, and it's always got to be this complete thing rolled in, and that's how it's got to start. And like, you know what I mean? Like your brain's already, this is the pre-programmed route. But if you start screwballing around with the structure and stuff, you can have like a lot of fun with it, you know. Especially when the track starts fighting back, you can be like, you know what, screw all that. I'm gonna mute every other track and just see how 3 out of 6 sound when I hit play.
That's brilliant. Just before I throw it to you, Resi, a piece of advice I once got from a guy was that you listen to the mix and you mute each track. And if you can't hear the difference, leave it out. And something I'm trying to do increasingly is in the chorus, you don't hear those sounds. Those sounds only happen in the verse, and these sounds only happen in the chorus. Razzie, I want to hear your brain.
You mentioned, I think last week, Balinese Gamelan.
Yes.
And this is where we're like exactly squarely back onto that topic. I mean, with the gong and the bell and the atonal and the disregard for diatonic melody. Those ensembles take 7 notes and spread them out. I think more in the, there's Slendro and Pelag are the 2 main tunings they use in the ensembles, probably a lot more. But I think the point is to get them to beat against each other in pleasing ways rather than do simple ratios like we're used to hearing in melodies where they don't beat. So inharmonicity and dissonance and that kind of really not saying the F word today, or
Whatever, baby. Whatever you want.
the kind of mindfuck that kind of binaural sort of sitting in a circle of resonating, intermodulating sounds creates. It's like definitely a meditative, transcendental kind of trip rather than, well, it's a thing. Like it's a tradition, and there's a lot to listen to. And I've never heard an ensemble play in person, but now that we're talking about it, man, I think it might be time to seek that out.
There'd have to be one in the US. There'd have to be.
Yeah, I mean,
they're very loud. That's the one thing I'll. Because they're people banging metal with metal hammers going bang, 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 bang. It's loud. I mean, the dancing's fantastic, man. Balinese dancing. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's all in the fingers, let me tell you.
right.
Or have a look online. Fantastic musical heritage. Aaron!
I'd also like to think that, you know, I've been doing some mixes and stuff for like Patreon supporters. I've been doing stuff for Graham just in general. And I started to think about a common topic, I guess, that bears reminding is like, if you're getting to a point where you're like, why is this loud? Why don't I like this? Like, why, you know what I mean? Other than deselecting every other thing, if there's just a general discontent or why is this loud, quote unquote, don't underestimate the decibel range on said track. Especially like I do a lot of narrative things. So you're not going to hear Bête Noire or you're not going to hear, you know, another Reaper if everything is just like chaos. So there might be something that needs to be pulled way back to like negative 16 dB or 23 dB to where like, you know, all of that starts to gel, and then you cross-reference it on all your different speakers and make sure that everybody plays well. But I just would like to throw that out there just as a helpful reminder if you're getting to a point where you're glaring, you know, your audio mix, or it could even be a video project that's glaring and you're just like the general feeling of why is this loud? It's probably because you just got to start fine-tuning it. It might not be that you hate the track or it's driving you nuts. One aspect is driving you nuts because it's redlining constantly, you know, and the, you know, your software is trying to tell you, hey man, it's too loud. Like, just peel it back a little bit, you know. But that's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome, Rose. Razzie, thank you, Aaron.
I was going to jokingly offer, Grim, that if you've got anything, any single channel at peaking at minus 20 in the modern era, it's going to disappear entirely and it might as well be muted. But that's just a commentary on slamming all the levels and making everything loud all at the same time.
True.
Something
Very true.
I'm really enjoying doing is, I think, although we're sort of talking about experimental music, I find that in mixing, so much of my mixing has to do with muting, like getting rid of shit. And if I have like Blaster Beam going, mute that motherfucker real hard, like, and constantly. Does anybody else? I'm loving the concept and the conversation behind experimental music. If anybody else wants to throw anything in about experimenting, because when I go to Australia, I will be taking my little Zoom recorder with me, and there's a whole bunch of abandoned phone lines and big windmills and stuff and all sorts of fun stuff. I have to take the pop guard as well. Ivan, also you put a Google Doc in here. What is that?
That's a link to the Paul X stretched sample of the Singing Bowl.
Oh, you did it.
Like 7 minutes long.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm going to make that public.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
It is tasty and delicious.
There's something tasty and delicious.
Yeah, I love it. Just turned out amazing. So, different kind of experiment than usual. Working on a song right now, and I've I've constrained myself to only using stock Ableton stuff. So, you know, can't use the fun rolling drums. Will not be touching any of my Korg synths. Will not be touching anything over there. It's, smallest controller I can fit on my desktop, and just Ableton stuff, just to see what happens, because I haven't worked in that way since I was getting started, and I think I'm going into it now knowing more, and I want to see if that results in it, the results being better.
Sounds like a great idea. Thank you very much. I can't wait to hear that. Alex, hit me.
So one thing I really appreciate in experimental music is when they don't add stuff but leave stuff out. Like, for example, if a track doesn't have a kick drum at all, or doesn't have a bass, or something like that, in electronic experimental music. I feel that with many of the tracks by Sophie that she did, where there's just no kick drum, but the bass is doing all the percussive thumbs when it has to be. So that's my 2 cents.
Awesomeness. Thank you, man. Razzie!
Yeah, subtraction is, by definition, kind of hard to achieve in music, because music being like sort of the presence of air moving around, where in other kinds of design you can easily make holes in things that are referential and obvious, like build a table that has the shape of a chair taken out of it, and you've got a subtraction statement, or a magazine page layout with a black square in it or a hole, and conveying that into the world of sound. Like, I hope somebody has some suggestions and ideas for how to even do that.
Can I address that very quickly before I throw it back to you, Ivan? Eno's got a Eno. That's it. Eno. He's got a there's an app he has or something. It's a plugin for Ableton, and what it actually does is pull stuff out. And if you put it on your drums, instead of it going bum, it'll be bum, and it'll actually just mute stuff. It just pulls shit out randomly. And
it comes back to the idea of setting up expectations and finding the things to remove that defy the expectations in a still pleasing or interesting way.
Yeah.
Or startling.
Yeah. He just pulls that shit out. I'm all about doing madness, constant madness like that. Ivan!
Okay, I really need to know where this plugin that he uses comes from. So if somebody finds the link, post it.
Okay.
While you're on Ableton, start with the stutter device that's built in. If you're really just using built-in devices, also AutoPan can do a square wave and do that across buses, and the grain delay can do a more stochastic random version of that. But beat repeat is the name of the first effect that I was referring to. Okay. So beat repeat, AutoPan with a square wave set to in phase, and the grain delay set to 100% with very small grains are super ways into that.
I'm gonna have to try with it. I'm gonna
built
have to
in
with it.
Native.
Bingo. And there's taking stuff out, and then there's just pure minimalism. But I can't remember their name. But there's a band that does like a cover of Level Tears Apart, and it's the minimalist version of it, and it is kind of fucking beautiful. Oops.
I think we crossed that threshold a long time ago, Ivan.
Fucking hell, Ivan.
But that's like a super important distinction that you've reiterated there, is the difference between minimalism and subtraction, subtractive,
Yeah. But like going straight, like pure minimalist is also something that like it seems like people avoid. Yeah, David Sylvian, at one point suggested that making music involved taking away all the stuff that isn't the music.
Whereas Brian Eno said making music involves taking away everything that is the music. Well, maybe he didn't. You say David Sylvian a lot. But the way you say it, David Sylvian, it's really nice. I like it a lot. Alex!
One approach might be to just use noise and filter everything out you don't want, like really narrow filters, and it's then in theory a bit like a hypersaw or something like that, because you have these dense frequencies around a certain pitch. This might be interesting.
That sounds great. I love it. Rose!
Hey guys, how's it going? Can you hear me? Is my
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's so good to see you guys. Oh man, it's been like a crazy time. Everybody in my house caught COVID. So I caught COVID, my husband caught COVID, I caught COVID, my brother caught COVID. It was like COVID all around. It fucking sucked. But anyway, back to, it's funny that you guys are talking about this specifically, because I'm actually working on a song right now, kind of stepping away from the traditional, obviously I kind of live more in the rock and roll world than a lot of you guys, because you're more like industrial and electronic and stuff. But I kind of came from that too, so I have felt the desire to dabble once again in the world of electronic music and mess around more with stuff. So, and that's actually one of the big things, because I noticed that that's actually a trait in a lot of the newer rock bands right now, in like that I follow, like on TikTok and whatever else. Like they do these things where they like cut things out, and then when the chorus kicks in, boom, it's like wall of noise destroying your mind, and it's awesome. So I was like, ooh, I kind of like that, So I was like, okay, because I've always been very musically like dense, like lots of like layers of, the guitar, bass, everything, like live instruments, blah, But I'm definitely thinking about stripping stuff down, and also experimenting too with language. I'm gonna do my first song with where I sing in Spanish.
Woo!
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I might also do one where I speak some Japanese. It just depends. But yeah, I'm just gonna. I've decided that that music is for me, and it's not for anybody else. So I'm done with thinking about what other people might like or anything. I'm going totally completely off the grid and just doing whatever the fuck I want, and it gives you such freedom, like when you stop caring about like, oh well, blah blah blah. It's like no, I don't care what's trending, I don't care what this is, I'm just gonna do the things that make me happy. And I think that's really the most important thing about experimenting with music in the first place. You know what I mean? Is just fucking throw everything out the window and try it. You know what I mean? Just try. Like I think that's like, some people kind of criticized me when I first started playing with my new band, because they were like, well, where's your drummer? You can't be a metal band without a drummer. And I'm like, I never said I was a metal band. So boom, there you go. But I think that it's interesting that people will always tell you, they will always try to tell you, they will always try to fit you into their little box of what they think is the right thing, of what they think is, the proper way to do things. And I think that the whole point of rock music is to say, fuck that shit. You know what I mean? Like, where did that attitude go? Why is everybody so busy catering to like the tastes of this person and that person, that they're not actually making a sound that is unique to them? So my biggest thing is that sometimes I'll just like go on my guitarist does this too. Sometimes we'll go on YouTube and we'll just like, there's like a lot of people that do just like random beats and stuff, and just like we'll just like play like Russian roulette with beats and like just see what comes up, and these are things that they put for people to work with, of course, not stealing anything, but it's just like, all right, let's just, sometimes we just have exercises in noise where we just see what kind of patterns we can come up with along with whatever random beat, because that way it kind of keeps me personally from overthinking too much, which obviously is something that I do a lot. And I really think that that's like the most important thing is to just do it. So the criticism that I got for not having a drummer, for this and that and the other, I'm like, well, I came from fucking punk rock, and like it's like you always just did what you had to do. You did whatever it took, and you didn't care. And that to me is the essence of fucking punk, And it's like nobody. Like, people are like, oh, but you have to, like, no, I really don't. I don't need two guitarists. I don't need a live drummer if I don't want one. I don't need to follow whatever fucking rule book that it is that you people think that I should follow, because I don't care. I do it for me. So do it for you, and don't be afraid to try new things. Play some Russian roulette on YouTube. Just, like, there's just type free beats, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And just, like, let your unshackle your rock and roll spirit and fucking do the thing. That's what I gotta say.
Rock and roll. Raz. Thank you, Rose.
Rose brought it around to some of what the definition and motivation for being experimental is, but I would hope other people can chime in on like what we even mean when we're talking about being experimental. What is the opposite of experimental? What is your idea and purpose of experimental music or a project or a moment or a practice, and how does that contrast with when you're not being experimental?
Beautiful. Did you want to develop on that, or will I throw it to Alex?
No, I hope other people can chime in, because I'm really, again, asking, and I'll probably,
All right.
come up with ideas after hearing people.
All right. I love that. Alex, what you got?
I just wanted to mention that sometimes what happens to me is that if I try to something new and try something out, I end up in well-written paths without realizing it, which is kind of funny. For example, I thought, what happens if I put my drum machine into my guitar amp, and it just sounded like hardcore techno, which I didn't knew was going to happen.
If you ever do that again, mic it up.
Okay.
Mic up your drum machine out of your amp, and you will get the best sounding drums you have ever heard. Trust me. No, don't trust me.
Do
That's
it.
the worst advice. Trust her. Go on.
And the same happened also with composition, like what happens if I do triplets in this way or something like that. And I ended up with things I already heard, but didn't know this was the way to realize it, or maybe shifting certain elements of the drums or something like this. And maybe what for me the inspiration is for being experimental, I have like this itch for something new in music. It's like in music I listen to as a listener, I want something that has something new, something exciting. And I sort of want to make this happen for other people. That's why I try to find new sounds, new feelings, new worlds to discover. That's the motivation for me.
All right, cool. It's really interesting, if I may, picking up on a few things. It's really important to... This is ironic or funny, because part of it is about being true to yourself, which I believe from a marketing perspective is one of the most important things you can do, because I am adamant that a large chunk of your audience are you. And people, you know how you get really bored with shit? So does your audience. So that's why it's important for you to be constantly pushing those boundaries, and you to be experimenting, and you and playing. When I say experiment, that was a really good point. Thank you, Razzie. Is that trying different chords, trying anything new, trying different sounds. And I find for me to cleanse the palate, I have to do it to an extreme and actually go out somewhere as if I am, just trying something totally out of the ballpark to see if it works, because the thing I love about these sessions is that we can talk to people here have been doing something for years and years and years, and other people have doing something for hours and hours and hours. And the people who have been doing things for hours and hours and hours often have thoughts and mindsets that are really free, liberated, and experimental. that I find so inspiring. Like, wow, I've never thought of doing it like that before. So constantly trying something new. For example, I should really use different software because I've been using Cubase for 30 years. And I don't know, but yeah, Raz, what you got?
I think pushing our own limits and finding the elusive new sound, like Alex is referring to, and the not giving a fuck attitude that Rose refers to, are all interesting components and help to define what experimenting is and how it feels. But I'm also not thinking of historic, emotionally compelling, universally lauded musical experience that resulted from pure experimentalism and didn't then go into something more conventional. I mean, John Cage comes up, of course, as a thing to talk about, and it's a different kind of experience to sit through, silence in a crowd or randomly tuned radios making noises. But it's also only music in the sense that he says it's music and transcribed it. It's not music in the sense that it's a series of identifiable tones in a sequence of some sort. So where do we land on what actually is an experimental music piece that comes up to that line of, yeah, this is musical, we can identify this as a tune, but it's also so wildly different than all the other examples of music, but it's still emotionally compelling, but it's still different. Like, where does that even exist?
I got thoughts on that. Rose, what you got?
All right. Raz, you always come up with some really great points, and I think that it's very interesting because I've obviously grown up around a lot of different types of musicians and stuff, but obviously a lot of metalheads, a lot of goths, and industrial and whatever else, because I mean the scene originally when I was around was not so big, so you all had to hang out together. The ska kids, the raver kids, the metalhead kids, the goth kids, we all were just like lumped into one little tiny core of, alternative people or whatever. So I think for me, experimental means not being afraid to draw from all of those influences, not following whatever the blueprint is necessarily. And I'll be first to admit, I don't listen to super experimental music. There's some of it that's like that I can jam with, and there's some of it that's like puts me to sleep. And I just like I need something to grab onto, I need something that's missing from there, especially because I'm very much into lyrics. So a lot of experimental, like noisy kind of stuff doesn't always necessarily have that. It's more based on like instrumentation and flow, but I love that. I love the flow, and I think that that's something that's really we experience a lot in circus too, where I think I've mentioned it before, like our bag of tricks. Like we'd write down all the tricks that we knew how to do on whatever apparatus, throw it in a bag, shake it up, pull out another one, and see if you can actually do this one going into that one. Because you're like, I don't know. I've never tried to do this going into this. It will either be awesome or a total failure, and my butt will probably end up in somebody's face and my foot will be here, but it'll still be fun. You know what I mean? And I think it's just not being afraid to have fun and not being afraid to mix stuff because people say you're not supposed to mix stuff, and fuck their rules. That's why we're here. You know what I mean? That's why we're here. Fuck their rules.
Thank you. It's really interesting, like, Ivan, when I saw your bowl, my first impression was, I want to bow that thing. And in a sexual way as well. And then my wife got a bowl.
Got a bow upstairs. I gotta try that.
Yeah. Yeah. She got a lamp last night, and it's got this beautiful deep. It's a dome lamp, and it's a beautiful. Like, it's not nowhere near yours, but it's got this beautiful, deep resonance. And we've got these other sort of like metal bowl lamps, and my thought was, I really want to set up one there and one there and just play them or bowl them. And to me, that is not experimental at all, because it's like, oh yeah, that's just a go-to thing for me. So it's interesting that I don't, and there's things that to me are very fun. For example, a sound safari. Out I go into the wilderness, but that's not experimental to me either. And it's interesting. Maybe I don't know what's experimental to me. I find that that I absolutely love opera because it's it's experimenting to me. It's extremely experimental. Like, there are concepts going on in the musicality of that stuff, which is just, it is mind-boggling. It is clouds of amazingness to me. But then again, I've got an education in that, and it's not really experimental. So for me to find something that's experimental, I think it has a lot to do with talking to people who have a totally fresh outlook to music, or it's not actually the doing of something, it's the thought process behind something. Like Japanese or gamelan music's really inspiring to me because it's a totally different culture of music. And also like the concept of, thank you, Swords and Synthesizers, who says experiment is out of your comfort zone physically and mentally with different media. That's why for me sculpture and painting is interesting as well, because it suggests sound. But I'm prattling now. Grim, and go, hit me with your grimness, Aaron.
I would recommend, and I'll put it in the chat, if you've never seen Grimes, the way Grimes kind of operates, she was invited to do like a BBC One thing. And if you just want to see, like, I don't know, I guess a kid at play, I mean, she's just doing all of this dynamic stuff just on her own, It was really cool because it wasn't, I'm here to play the song. It was instrumentals and like rolling one into another, and it was playing with all these switch effects or echoes, or it was just really cool, like, to see that. So yeah, it's like every now and again you just got to get lost in that and just have fun instead of bashing your head into the computer desk going, why isn't the song working? And on that note too, I mean, sometimes if the song's not working or whatever, it's like I've had so many things I want to put in a grim soundscape, but I finally got to the point where I said, you know what, like, it's kind of cool to harken back to the days where people made albums, but they were instrumentals that would bridge things, So I think, I don't know, if you're really just beating yourself to death over something, like, get to a point where you go, okay, well, maybe this isn't meant for this song. Like, these lyrics maybe aren't meant for this thing at this time, but maybe I could use that as an instrumental to bridge one song to the other, or just have a song that's just purely instrumental. I mean, I guess it depends on your choice and your audience and or you could just say to hell with all that and say, this will be the bridge piece between track 3 and track 4. I always personally enjoyed albums that were like that. If you listen to The Prodigy or Chumbawamba or anything in between, people are going to laugh at that, but they've got really dynamic, really cool instrumental interludes, and sometimes they're only 40 seconds a shot, but it's just a really, really unique thing, instead of every song has lyrics and every song is full send and the entire album just has to have lyrics 100% of the time. I think that could play into the experimental side of it. Sometimes your favorite pieces of an album is not even a full-blown song.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Ivan, thank you, Grim. Ivan.
So, spent a whole lot of time studying ballroom dancing, waltzing, tango, all the good stuff. And like back in the early 2000s, I got really tired of going out to the clubs, and it was just 4 on the floor all night. in its entirety, and that just bored me to tears. It's like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next. Oh, it did. Oh, I know what's gonna happen next. Oh, it did. And so, I'm experimenting, because I didn't know better with, a lot of like ballroom formatted, industrial music, because I thought that would be an interesting approach, because it's so very rare. It's not that it's not done. It's just rare. And, turns out that Ogre, Cracker, that's actually a waltz. It's in 3/4. Like, and as a result of that, I spend a lot of time looking at other like beat patterns, because try to mix that up, folks. All right, that's my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Razzie.
I'm getting the sense that, and I agree with what sense I'm getting from everyone, is that experimentalism isn't about breaking rules, and it's not necessarily even something that's meaningful for describing a type of music, although it works in in culture. We know what we mean a lot of the time, but it's the practice of isolating the variables in your craft and changing just one at a time and observing what happens, in the truest definition of what experimental, what a scientific experiment is. Or maybe not being so scientific and changing a few variables at a time, but like focusing on something that you can change about your practice and changing it and observing the results and incorporating them or not. But I think that's what can lend toward growth and change and doing something unique and original. But that intentionality of changing something that you do seems to be kind of a common thread. Thoughts?
Thank you. I remind me best burritos in town. For me, I think increasingly, Swords and Synthesizers says there is a process in creative problem solving called chunking, where you change the size or speed of what you are focused on to change the dynamics of what you normally do. Thank you. That's brilliant. I think an issue that I am facing, and I know a lot of other people are facing as well, is frustration and exhaustion. That, there is this... I was actually talking to a friend about this, and I've brought this up before, about the concept of the imaginary wall in your head that is stopping you from doing XYZ because there's an imaginary wall there, and it actually changes your thought process because you're tied down to process, and you're tied down to habits, which for no reason whatsoever brings me to go find the best burrito in your city. And Alex, I'm sorry. There's heaps of amazing food in Germany. Like, specifically, because I'm in LA, burrito. Find the best burrito. And I may have found the best burrito, which is actually close to where I live. And I bring all this up because I was having a conversation with my good friend Dave about this imaginary wall and this frustration and pushing through it. Dave's also he's an artist in his master years. He's a choreographer and a dancer, and he was talking about how there's just this wall in your head that stops you. It just stops you, and it seems to have got a lot worse for him, for myself, for so many other people, since 2000, since 2020, COVID and all that. So the reason I say go find the best burrito in town is because it's going to rely on you getting out of your house and going into areas that you probably wouldn't go into. And the cool thing about areas that you probably wouldn't go into is that you don't know where you are. You've never been on this street before. Oh, look, street art. Take a photo of the street art and the graffiti. Get inspired by it. Go into one of the little weird shops. You know those little shops? Go into one of those little shops. Buy something from those little shops. Experiment and find that damn fucking burrito. Because Australia doesn't have burritos. And it's one of my national shames. We have pies that are fucking amazing. We don't have burritos. Soz and Sins has always said, or be brave and circuit bend your synth keyboard or kid's toy to create chaos and randomness you wouldn't really normally think about. That's great. We were talking about the Buchla mindset or the VCS3 mindset. Like, you know, totally change the way your brain patches by looking at ways that certain synthesizers or software or ideas put ideas together. You know, Rose was talking about the gig bag, you know, the bag of tricks. Swap your bag of tricks with someone else. Use slap bass or don't use slap bass. Just, yeah, there you go. That's one of my bags of tricks. Use slap. Listen to Scritti Politti. Listen closely to Scritti Politti. Listen to what Scritti Politti are doing. That band is so good. Here's Julius. Because they get this really complicated riff and they assign it to like 3 or 4 different instruments. So that riff is moving through these instruments. And it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And a whole bunch of slap bass. Thank you, Emulator 2. Rose, hit me.
Everybody's coming up with some really good points. What did I want to say? Oh, of course, and I've mentioned this before. Yeah, listen to different music. Listen to different music than you usually listen to. And listen to it in a different way. So what I mean by that is, ever since I started Muggle Job and I have Muggle Hours now, I've been listening to a lot of music. Like, you know, because they encourage us to wear headphones while we work, you know, and they're like, listen to whatever you want, you know, just keep it on headphones and stuff. Like, cool. So I've been listening to albums the way that I used to, the way that I prefer to just sit down and listen to the fucking whole album. Like that's the way we used to do it. Like, I don't know, this new way of like a billion, little pieces that are not really connected to each other, you know what I mean, is not as satisfying to me. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of hip hop, a lot of Spanish music, actually, Spanish hip hop from Snow Product and a bunch of other musicians like that, Il Nino. And I was just thinking about, you know, like my heritage and where I came from. And I think that when I was younger, because I felt very apart from that culture, you know what I mean? Like I was too weird to be normal, but I was also too quote unquote white in my interests to be Hispanic, you know? So there was like this whole clash growing up where, you know, all of my interests seemed to be, you know, against the mainstream of everything that was around me. And so I developed an aversion to mainstream things. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh no, it's not punk rock enough. It's not underground enough. You know what I mean? I think we all go through that kind of dickhead phase. But I definitely think that, you know, switching up the style of music that you listen to is crucial. You know, listening to and one way that you can do that, that I've been taking advantage of recently, is on Spotify you can do like they have like your daily mix, right? They have like a couple of different daily mixes where they're like, okay, these are the type of artists, and here's a couple of playlists that are, you know, the ones that you like, and we'll sprinkle a couple that you don't know. Or you can go to Discover Weekly and it'll give you just totally new music in there, just all different stuff, you know. And so I've been doing that a lot, just to see, like, I'm like, what'd you guys come up with this time? And I'll be like, love that, hate that, you know, like that, you know. And I've been finding a lot more, you know, it's like I think a lot of people in my age group are like, oh, new music is trash and this and that, you know what I mean? And no, that's not true. There's good music. There's good music there. You know what I mean? There's good music out there. You're just not hearing it, you know, because you're listening to only the same fucking bands that you've always listened to. So do something else. Back in the day, we had radio, you know, but now, like, that's not really a thing, you know what I mean? Like, I don't listen to radios unless I'm like driving from a gig or something, and that's like the only thing available or whatever. But yeah, so I recommend doing stuff like that. You know, I often find new bands by going on like on YouTube, and I look at the explore bar, you know what I mean? Like, I'll look at something that I like, and then I'll see, okay, this band, they're saying this band's kind of similar, fuck it, let me listen to it, you know? And I kind of just go like a little rabbit hole of finding bands and listening and buying their music. I buy it. And I think that that's really the most important thing, is that, you know, you're just, you put the ego aside, you put whatever personal issues you have with whatever, and just judge music based on, does it make you shake your ass or not? You know what I mean? Do you like it? Or, like I feel like there's a lot of people that have these internal rules of, I'm only allowed to like this. And I think that especially is true in the goth scene and stuff. Because, you know, the other types of music that are more popular, that are more mainstream, the people that listen to that music are the ones that are kicking your ass in school. You know what I mean? So it's like, they're your bullies. So you just like get this aversion to a style of music that has nothing to do with the music itself. It has to do with the people that listen to it. So fuck all of that and just listen to it objectively. You know what I mean? Like, I've noticed like all of these really cool, these rappers that are just like, they switch their style up in such a crazy way. Like Tech9 is one of my favorite rappers, and he just like fucking destroys. Like, he is a chopper, first off, so he can rap like insanely fast, but also he's so creative with the way that he switches his cadence, the way he switches, you know, everything. It's just awesome to listen to. It's like a fucking masterclass. You're like, God damn, like, oh, I didn't even think. And he even talks about that in his songs. So anyway, go for it. Listen to the shit that you thought you didn't like. Give it another shot, because I guarantee you, the first time that you hear something and it's not what you expect, sometimes that thing is, you know, you're like, no, this thing is not what I expected it to be, so I hate it. You know what I mean? But you have to like calm down and be like, okay, well, I'm going to set it down now. I'm gonna listen to this again tomorrow and see if I have a different opinion of it. Almost always, I end up liking the thing. You know what I mean? This especially happens when like a band that I love, you know, puts out a new album and it's very different style from what they used to do. You know, and then like my brain has to like reconcile that, because they're like, my brain was expecting A and they delivered B. And, you know, but delivering B is part of experimentation. It's part of growing as an artist. You have to do it. You can't be afraid. Don't live in fear. Fucking rock out. Do stupid shit. You know, make friends with people that like totally different music than you, and actually ask them, you know, to recommend some stuff so you hear some other things that you haven't heard before. So that's it.
Excellent, thank you. I'll just say really quickly that the Spotify does a really interesting thing where, say, if you like these 4 songs and somebody else likes these 4 songs, and that person also likes these 3 songs, they're going to recommend that you listen to those 3 songs. Because if you have all this stuff in common, maybe you'll have this in common as well. Spotify's like playlist things are amazing. And also, incidentally, randomly, Ice Planet 9000 got put on some playlist, and it got, in one day, they threw it on, then they threw it off, 5,000 plays in one fucking day. Fucking craziness. Alex, what you got?
Sometimes, for me personally, one of the best ways to experiment is to deliberately do the opposite of what I usually do. For example, like, usually I want the baddest, fattest kick drum ever, like the one that shakes rooms and destroys buildings. And then I thought, what happens if I do the smallest, most insignificant kick drum I could possibly make with synthesizers or maybe sample manipulation. And even though the result won't end up in a finished track, I still feel like this kind of experimentation leads to very interesting insights that I can use later for other things. I think that's a really cool way to find out new ways of working, new ways of thinking. And also, in terms of listening to new music, if I can afford it, I really like to buy music just on the cover, because I think like it sometimes throws you into an artist you wouldn't have listened to otherwise. And I think only once bought an album that I regretted just by the cover.
Awesome. Thank you. Aaron!
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I would definitely recommend too, like in the experimental front, I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's one of those like set the space type things. You know, it's if something's not working, it might be it might be a setup, it might be the way that your room's laid out, it might be something driving you nuts to where maybe you need to light candles or switch red lights on or some of my favorite bands, you know, bring this crazy dynamic to their live shows. You know, you can set something up on a screen that has your album cover, you know, or just cuts through a photo shoot while you're doing a live stream, or throws your lyrics at the screen as, you know, they're just killing it. I mean, you know, you could adopt the mentality where it's just F it, send it. You know, whatever happens during this live stream happens. But you know what I mean? And I know I'm going to go in two different paths, but it's like if you're either jamming on your own, set your space to where you're comfortable, to where you're going to have fun doing it. You don't have to be like craned over the keyboard being like, why isn't anything working? You know, and it could just be literally a visual aesthetic, or like I said, if you switch gears and start doing the live thing, just have fun and decorate your space, or have backdrops and things that you love to where you feel comfortable in the space and you're just having a blast. And then again, you just adopt the mentality of F it, send it. Whatever happens during the stream happens, because I liken it to the experience of playing Rock Band. Okay. People get anxiety when they're playing games or whatever, because they're like, oh my God, everybody's watching me and I'm going to screw this up. No, more people are pulling for you than you possibly think. And even if something goes wrong during a live stream or when you're jamming with people, who cares? Because more often than not, they're people that are holding the torch for you and they're in your corner and they want to see you succeed or experiment or try things out. There's not as much perceived, all the pressure that you see is perceived. It's not real.
That's brilliant, man. Thank you very much. Also, thanks for not saying fuck. I really appreciate you not saying fuck. It means so much that you didn't say fuck. Once again...
Oh, shit.
Yeah, or shit. Thank you. Facebook has once again blocked this fucking video. Once again, because... Fuck those cunts. Because standards of nudity or sexual activity.
That's because Grim said viscous earlier. I flagged that.
No, I actually said moist at one point
Jesus.
as well. Yeah. Anyway, and I may have been something about me saying I want to fuck your bowl, Ivan. Ivan, I want to fuck your bowl and fill it with fluid. As it's begging for more fluid to be filled into it. I just think I'm going to give up streaming to Facebook. I'm so fucking sick of this repulsive, repugnant dog shit constantly. I'm really over this now. But what do you expect when this fucking bunch of twats have backing from Hillsong, really? Ivan, I see your hand. I hope it's been rubbing your genitals.
Yeah, in the world of chaos magic, there's an idea of paradigm shifting, So, as a magician, I'm doing Norse mythos and, summoning Odin and doing all that fun stuff. Then you just drop what you've been doing and you pick up a different paradigm. So now it's Cthulhu. You do that for a while.
Yeah.
You drop what you're doing and you start doing Shinto. By shifting like that frequently, you never get into stale old habits, and you never really become a true believer. You gives you a chance to just focus on the techniques instead. And then there's also paradigm piracy, where you eclectically mix and match from different parts of the world to build something new. So highly experimental in that way. But I think the concept of shifting paradigms on yourself, probably highly valuable, because it puts you into a new headspace, which can be terrifying and inspirational at the same time. Because again, all of the really good prizes are just outside your comfort zone, just hanging there, right across the line. As soon as you're willing to step across it, you get those good prizes.
Fuck yeah. I have a craving for chocolate right now. Razzie, what do you got?
Well, first off, I don't know, Vince, Julia, Swan, if you weren't here for the top of this, talking about experimentalism and what it means in your music and practice, and what it means to describe something as experimental also has come up. But one of the things that we seem to be, if I can sum it up again, so I'm getting my head around this. There's two features that keep coming up, and that's getting over hurdles, using experimentation as a means to fix a blockage or get past the wall, and also that the creative process is experimentation. There's no actual distinction. There may be a gradient of some sort, but if we're in the process of making a song, self-selecting group of people here, certainly, that is kind of by definition an experimental act. And then one thing, when Grim mentioned the rock band in this context, the experience of authoring is one of the few examples I've come up with so far as the opposite of experimental, or that I've heard mentioned, where it's look at the rules, look at the expectations, and deliberately adhere to those rules without trying to do anything surprising or unexpected. And it's just interesting that might result in something that feels like an experimental experience on the other end, but it's kind of the opposite. And then the last thing I noted is that may be much more related to what Rose, I think, mentioned about being an experimental listener, in that you are, I think we can almost just swap in the word observant listener, attentive listener, and in the act of trying to find music that you haven't already heard. I mean, I'm guilty of just trying to find Clan of Zymox, Twist of Shadows, and Medusa, somebody to remake those every 10 years or so. I'd be pretty happy. But finding the pieces in other unexpected places of music that you didn't think that you'd like, even if you still hate the fucking song, you may be able to take away from it a cadence, a rhythm, an inflection, a tonality, a implied space by the mix that just gets your ear. That's all.
Bloody awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for your brain. If I was Hannibal, I'd eat it now. But first, here's one.
Chianti.
Hey, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Perfectly.
Awesome. I think I followed Razi, what you were saying in terms of experimentation. I'm not sure if the context was experimenting with writing or just in general, in genre or whatever it is. But I think just to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Razi, I find it seems like we work as long as we do, as hard as we do, to develop tools to just continue experimenting. I don't know about you guys, but every time I learn something new, it just gets thrown into the arsenal to then later use it or kind of like plug it into something I'm doing, but it'll always morph into something. It'll always mutate into something that I didn't intend. So it feels like that's experimental in itself. The other side I wanted to touch on was kind of giving yourself permission to experiment. Like the idea of experimentation, what is that? It seems like it's very personal, where it's like, just don't follow your own rules and you're already experimenting. So maybe it boils down to expectations, or like you said, using experimentation to break down boundaries we've put up for ourselves, or boundaries that do exist. You know, obviously, whenever I've heard someone say this is experimental, you know, in regards to music or art of any sort, it's just not the norm. Where usually there's a method that was behind it or a meaning that was applied to it. But it just really feels like it boils down to changing your own status quo and finding a different direction. And the tools you build over time will allow you to do that easier. Not sure if that's kind of where we were going with this, but that's kind of what's resonating with me with everything we're talking about right now.
Awesome, man. Thank you. It's interesting that, and if somebody could just jump on Twitch and tell me if we're still streaming. Here comes a rant. It's really difficult for me because a lot of the concepts that I'm interested in are offensive. And thank you, Rosie. Like, they're offensive, and it's like, I'm not trying to be offensive. It's ultimately the person I'm trying to offend is myself. Because like, I have these really strict, ways of thinking and stuff, and I'm always trying to break this way of thinking that's so tiresome and tedious. But it's all about this fucking autistic process bullshit that I'm currently always bound to. I'm chained to this thing. And I see also that there's a lot of, this exists a lot in society as well, that there's so many things you can't say. And what I have to remind myself is, because I am sick of this thing, many others are sick of this thing as well. It's a very safe assumption to make that many people are sick of this thing. And, maybe it's not a thing. Maybe it's not a them. Maybe it's not this big boogeyman. Maybe it's just this constant thing in people's... And I'm wearing my Batman sweatpants, by the way. It's a constant thing. I know, they're very swish. And they're flannel. Very comfy. Sometimes I have to do things like purposely not wear the same socks, just to break this constant thing in my fucking head. And, to create something that is so offensively crazy, and it's not about offending you. Thanks, Julius. It's not about offending other people. It's about breaking this constant fucking thing in my brain. This process, and it's I don't know, and it's funny that I saw a comment about Hillsong, and that was enough for me to go, ugh. If you don't know what Hillsong is, ironically, it's the devil. But yeah, so I'm always trying to just create turmoil inside my mind. And increasingly, a problem I'm finding is that there is a wall, and I don't know if the wall exists or not, I'm going to offend people. Like, this is going to offend people. And that's going to have an adverse reaction on my musical reach. Because we said fuck, it didn't stream to Facebook. Already. And I don't know how to say, okay, Facebook, you twat, we're 18 plus. I don't know how to do that, you know. This sort of thing makes me angry, and ironically, I think experimentation is great, and I want to experiment, but I want to be angry. Like, how do I experiment angrily? How do I get really fucking pissed off, and then I smash things, and then I record them, and I sample them, and that's not really experimenting to me at all, but it feels good! I just think what I'm trying to say is fuck off! Alex, what do you got?
What I feel is that many artists and musicians are kind of afraid to be genuine.
Yes.
Did I miss something again?
Grim is counting how many times you say fuck.
I had a fuck counter.
Ah, okay.
Fuck counter. That was very rude. Proceed.
Yeah, I feel some people are so performative but afraid to be genuine because they feel like it's embarrassing or like endangering themselves to be read easily. And it's something I try to do more often, to just be feelings over maybe a constructed way of having a message or something like that. Just write what I feel. And maybe even if it doesn't make any sense, just write it down. And yeah, to be more genuine and with what I feel. Because I feel like many people are self-censoring in the way that they don't want to let anyone in and try to project an image that is just the safest.
Yeah, thank you, man. My blood is really starting to boil right now because this is really, for me, what my core issue is that, and you know, it's funny that you may or may not have been aware that you just echoed the words of somebody who I think is comic genius, John Cleese, and John Cleese got cancelled into fuckdom because he said something and people misunderstood what he said, or they chose to put an interpretation on to fit their fucking agenda of what he was trying to say. John Cleese, in another interview, said the problem we've got is that this little thing of paranoia and fear inside your head is not letting you finish the artistic, creative line of thought. And that line of thought might go somewhere really fucking random and then it might come back down. The problem in so many people's heads, mine inclusive, is I'm not allowed to go down that road. Because I've got this little thought police thing that's built into my head now. George Orwell didn't think of that one. It's built into my little head that, oh, don't say that. Don't think of, oh, no, you can't say that. You can't do that musically. You can't say that thing. When I'm not actually trying to say that thing, I'm trying to paint a picture of something. But everything is so taboo that, or at least it is in my head, that I am not allowed to go down that path. And I know so many artists are dealing with this. And, you know, I think that it's something that, sure, we say you're allowed to experiment and you're allowed to have fun, but you're allowed to offend people too, because this is rock and roll. It's fucking rock and roll. And the minute that rock and roll becomes self-centered by fucking people making rock and roll, we've lost the fucking fight. We should just go off and join Hillsong and worship a god that doesn't exist. That's what we should do. And the beautiful irony of this whole fucking thing, and people are going to disagree with me on this one, is that we're being ass-fucked by some fucking AI that is creating these echo chambers within echo chambers. I had this conversation this week. Oh my God, I had a conversation with somebody, and somebody who is a very dear, dear friend to me. And we can say things to each other. Yet another reason I love my wife is because I can say things to her politically that are out there. We both work in very left wing, because we're fucking lefties as fuck, in areas of very important things: homelessness, youth, all of these things, LGBTQ, all of these things we work in and we're very closely affiliated with. But sometimes you can stand back and go, some of this shit's, for example, equity. Don't get me started on equity. It's a great idea, but our society's got a long way to go before we can actually go, yeah, equity's a thing. Don't get me started. It's a long time. I don't want to fucking talk about it. So I was talking to my friend, and I'm going to get hammered for this, that there are podcasts that are right-wing, and I listen to them. And some of them are right-wing Christian. And I listen to them. And the reason I listen to these things is because I don't agree. But a part of the democracy of this country and of my country, which is so fucking good, is that you're allowed to have a conversation. And in order for me to respect these people and to see them as equals, I want to listen to the shit that they're talking about. And I would go, I really agreed up to the point of Q or reptilian takeovers. I'm with you, although I can laugh about reptilian takeovers, but when you get fucking serious about that shit, it's like, dude, come on. Or Pizzagate, or fucking whatever. But there are things that these people say that I agree with. I agree with some of these things. And it's shitty that but anyway, my point is that fucking as an apprentice Sith, because I sure as fuck aren't a Jedi, part of the thing about being a Sith is that you've got to embrace all forms of the Force, the light and the dark, and you've got to go through and make your mind up about what you think is bullshit and what you think is real. And you might go, you know what, Carl, I believe in God. Fuck you. You know what? Good. Because, hopefully a concept of God is going to keep you and your community and your family together. Awesome. That's fucking great. Whether I believe in it or agree with it, it fucking doesn't matter. My concern is increasingly, I am seeing people in my feed, because I see more of my feed than I do of people in real life now, that is increasingly in this fucking echo chamber and increasingly getting up in arms about all sorts of dumb shit, which is, I understand why people, when you look at their feed, it's full of huskies and kittens, because I don't want to deal with that fucking shit. So here's the end of my fucking rant. No, it's not. Offend people. Fucking offend people. You're a fucking rock and roller and it's your fucking job. Say something to someone that in your lyrics or your music that, I don't know if you should be thinking that, because you fucking should. We've got to get back to this fucking society where rock and rollers they're allowed to talk about la 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 Lola that possibly isn't in the most respectful manner. It's fucking okay. It's rock and roll. And the minute you're not writing a grant, you're not writing a business plan for a fucking meeting. You're writing music for a whole bunch of drunk people who are fucking pissed off and are done with this stupid bullshit and they want to be alive. And it doesn't want to what their political affiliation is. The fucking thing is that they want the freedom to think what they want to fucking think. That's all they fucking want. But for some reason, we're just being ruled by this bullshit algorithm that's not letting us think that. So you're allowed to think and say whatever you fucking want. And whether I agree with you or not, or a DJ's gonna play you or not, who gives a fuck? This is about you. Go get therapy. Juan, what you got? Tell me to get fucked.
Don't get fucked.
No, you tell me to get fucked or I'm muting you, Mike.
Get fucked.
Good man.
Man, you're touching on a lot of things that I've personally battled with music, with art, with just being sociable. And I think as an artist, any artist, there's kind of that those growing pains, where do you be true to yourself publicly? Do you let out exactly what you're thinking? Are people going to judge? Are they going to criticize? You have all that phase everyone goes through. And some of us, I'm still dealing with it, but we grow with it. Specifically to what you were talking about in terms of being offensive, I think it's important to be true to your nature, but I think it also depends on your intentions. If it's purely to offend, and Carl, this is in no way a shot at what you were saying, but if it's purely to offend, I feel that's hollow. But if it's with the intention to expose something, show another side to something, which I'm guessing is kind of what we're talking about here, then I think it's important to navigate the waters of whatever the climate is. Right now, things are really left and right. Now, hold on. I don't necessarily mean censor yourself. I'm talking about tactfulness. At least this is my personal approach that I find, where it's just like, you can say something offensive, but at what point will people stop listening because it was too offensive? And now your entire effort is lost because it was just crude or it was whatever. It's like, oh, that's just this. It gets dismissed immediately. Part of the problem I have with politics, be it social, governmental, whatever it is, that it's just offensiveness coming from both sides. It's just yelling. No one's actually having a conversation. Like you, I do listen to the other side of the fence constantly, whatever side that is. I constantly listen to it and hear what they say. And like you, I agree with some of the core points they have sometimes. Like, that makes a lot of fucking sense. Like, I can't argue that. What I don't agree with is at what cost you're willing to go for that thing as opposed to what compromise. So, and I tend to be really neutral with everything. I always play the middleman whenever I can in these arguments or these debates or conversations. But I find that with art is the one place where you should be as offensive as possible, but weigh that against your goal. If your goal is to spread a message, spread an ideology or a belief or whatever it is, you got to also make it something that's digestible versus just insulting. But again, that comes down to your personal goal. If your goal is to say, fuck the world, burn it, and anyone who doesn't agree with me can go with it, well, then that's the art, that's the message. And those who resonate with that will come to it. But again, if you're looking to have mass appeal and get into the pop radio side of things, like, clearly that shit's not going to work because someone's just going to gasp at whatever thought you have that isn't in line with, safe regulations. So I guess what I'm saying is I think there's an importance to being tactful when wielding a sharp message. And I think it can be powerful if you're tactful, which will open doors to really swing that sharp message around later on, because now there's a foundation behind it, which I think I just described how things get out of hand. But anyways, I'll stop there and pass on the mic.
Thank you so much for your input. Between us and the versatility that our approach is, we've got this covered. We've got the extreme covered, and we've got the sledgehammer covered, and we've got the pen covered. And I thank you for that. Ivan, tell me to fuck off.
I don't blame the algorithm.
I'm blaming the algorithm.
This started long before the algorithm existed.
Sure, yeah, totally. But
like,
it ain't making things better.
The whole latter half of the 20th century has been about not having an opinion because you might have to be right then. You might have to be,
informed.
Correct, yeah.
I don't want to be informed. That requires work.
Yeah, no, and our little monkey brains are we're psychologically built to be actually quite psychologically lazy. That's why we take shortcuts for everything, because thinking it through requires using burning glucose to make it happen, and that's expensive. So our brain's like, no, we'll just take the shortcut, it's easier. So and the algorithm knows that we're gonna has already seen that is where we're going, and so now it's just like, well, I'll just help. So it's just helping, but we've reached a point where outlaw has been adventure has been outlawed by society. So the next adventure should be destroying the society that outlawed adventure.
Say that again.
Society has outlawed adventure, being dangerous. So the next adventure should be destroying, the society that outlawed adventure.
Brilliant. I love that. Thank you very much. I just before I throw it to you, Rezzy, I just want to say, I was just thinking that all the artwork that I'm drawn to is offensive. Like Francis Bacon, extremely offensive artwork. H.R. Geiger, you're looking at penises and vaginas. Dali, I don't know what the fuck you're looking at there. I'm not really inspired by Dali, more James Gleason. But Cindy Sherman, like all of that art, Basquiat, all that stuff is like, it's not, the shit I remember at least is not, it's offensive. And you can define offensive however you want. And that's actually a really good exercise. What is offensive to you? What is the pointfulness of it? What is tactlessly offensive, defensive, offensive? That's all I got to say because I'm talking to myself in seconds. Razzie!
Yeah, when we talk about offensive art, there's that ironic case of Serrano's Piss Christ, where people were
Damien Hirst.
freaked out about it. Sure. But the artists themselves was just like, wasn't really
Didn't
expecting
give a
it to
shit.
get that much attention, and like what? Like, I'm not making a statement or trying to send any particular strong message here. It's just, some yellow liquid and a cool couple of words put together. Anyway, I think you also summed up the other things I wanted to touch on, but sometimes it's, I wonder if it's even possible to reach people who you're trying to convince of something using the medium that offends them, and thus it's sort of a self-defeating effort, as opposed to the very real human need of expressing yourself and having this stuff get on the record and saying it in the public forum. But I'm less hopeful that that's going to actually cause change or move the public opinion.
Thank you. I'm wrong. It wasn't Damien Hirst. It was
Serrano.
Yes, Serrano.
Yeah. I thought you were adding.
Yeah, well, Damien Hirst is another one.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, that guy. This is what's really interesting is that I'm increasingly finding that when Angelspit started, I mean, look at the name of the band, Angelspit. It has a whole bunch of different meanings, and all of them are very offensive. When Angelspit started, it was us as a big tribe going, fuck those guys over there, fuck them. And as Angelspit has developed and experienced the world and got to meet more people who are on the wavelength of Angelspit, that's this whole channel that we're broadcasting on, that all of us are plugged into, things have gotten a lot more, definitely not tame, but definitely more responsible. Like, it's not fuck fashion anymore. It's songs about trading freedom for safety and stuff like that. And what's really interesting is that increasingly, like, I went back to the product lyrics, and I've always like kept a log on that because it's where my mind's at. I go out, I go on tour, I talk to people. People have all these same concerns as I'm going all over the country talking to these people, and they become lyrics. And then when COVID happens, I didn't do that anymore. I was only online listening to people, like gathering people's thoughts of online. And it's interesting, and sure, that could be a part of the echo chamber that I am experiencing, that I am desperately trying to break, like violently, offensively trying to break my own echo chamber. The thing I am noticing increasingly is that lyrics, concepts, core, music, the whole lot is trying to break up the bonds, the wow, I've just got COVID fog for a second. the disease of the joints, arthritis, the neurological arthritis that I see increasingly in our tribe. And you know, a good thing about our tribe is that we are quite politically diverse, but things are, it's not as open to thought as I remember it being open to thought. And that's definitely not nostalgia, because I kept a lot of logs and a lot of notes that I'm seeing things close up increasingly. And, you know, I was looking at the new album I'm working on now called The Bastard Gods, which is coming out this year. I'm really seeing this as it's welded together. Like, and I mean welded badly. That, you know, even when I go out and even when I talk with people, it's like, people are so set in their ways. And that's why I am purposely listening to podcasts and watching documentaries and shit on shit that fucking revolts me. So I can go, I have to shake this shit up in my head. I'm going to stop now, Mark. You're muted.
I think I muted and unmuted myself. Anyway, Razzie was talking essentially about, can you affect public opinion? I really think you can. It's up to people. Well, sorry, can you affect people with a subversive opinion? I don't think you can. I think that's on the people to decide if they want to essentially step back and think about why something offends them and why they may or may not need to change something about themselves. No, that was it.
Totally relevant, and I thank you. Thank you. Raz.
It's well said. And there's something a little bit nuanced that I can't really get my head around to express, but the way of infiltrating people with other ideas than you have by presenting them with your own ideas is there's a paradox there. Rather, you have to somehow meet in the middle, and if the parties aren't both actively trying to have a dialogue, which nothing fosters anymore, you know, a dialogue of many voices and opinions and stuff. It's just it's the systems are polarized in a way that really doesn't support that. But yeah, there's got to be a technique. I mean, putting your voice on record with your own opinion and your own expression is fundamental. There's no you know, subtle undercurrent of what I'm saying that would imply don't do that. But finding a way to affect some differences and get into dialogues and conversations is, I think, Carl, you're saying it, is elusive and prevented and difficult, in contrast to how easy it seems to talk to people or hear from people. We've got this proliferation of ways to hear from and talk to people that overtly prevents us from actually having meaningful discourse and persuasive exchange of ideas. But I'm going to leave it there. I don't have a lot more to you know. Well, there'll be more. Someone please jump in.
Rock and roll. Alex, jump in.
How do I put this? Something that I really dismay is that you often can't really listen or watch people with opinions that you find vile without giving them like a push in views or in the algorithm and such. And that's kind of something that gives me an internal dilemma, because I often want to do that, but I don't want to give those people much attention. And I'm talking literal Nazis, so not people who are like bits on the other side, but like the real vile stuff. And yeah, and I also think like I really feel like algorithms have made the borders the camps much more apart. Like I think the last time things were so divided and people were living in such different worlds. I can remember here in Germany was when there were like really hardcore left-wing terrorists in the 70s. But they are far fewer than the far right wing people that are here now. Luckily, they're still not the majority, or like, but still, it's like, it's worrying how many people live in such a different world than the rest of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is coming like squarely down to each to their own, and you figure out the problem the way your brain is comfortable figuring out the problem, and then just push the comfort envelope a little tiny bit. That and in this conversation, everybody can be inspired by everybody. I don't really think you're going to change anyone's mind by music. I just don't. Oh, maybe you will. Gee, I just don't know. But I don't know, man. I just I don't know. I just I'm all about that fucking punk rock fucking shit. And I got a sledgehammer and I'm going to use it. Like, yeah. And I'll say one more thing just really quickly, and that is you must be tenacious. You must. Don't let your mind creatively go where you need to go to get that idea out, because the universe has blessed you with a brain that makes creative amazingness. The universe has blessed you, or God has blessed you. Whatever you want, you're blessed. So don't let these trivial little bullshitteries stop you from going on a path where your mind and imagination leads you. Because I think that's the thing that really, really angers me, is we have lost the ability to imagine. And it is imagination that will allow you to try and understand somebody else's point of view, that will try and help you make sense of something. Because for some reason, we're not letting ourselves imagine anymore. Or at least I'm not. So, as far as those people who are really set in their ways, I'm the worst of them. Because I'm convinced that I'm right, and I've got all this bullshit process, and I'm trying so hard to break it. I'm going to shut up now. Rizzy, go!
I mean, you just hit on exactly where I wanted to go. Is like, it's difficult for me to have compassion for somebody with a different opinion because I think I'm right. I think what I'm doing is correct. I think what I'm saying is the answer, and I will say it emphatically. And as you point out, yelling it and being tenacious about your idea. But the other side is doing that too, and it's a challenge. Hopefully, the equation is something in the order of a philosophical increasing joy and decreasing strife in the world. And if you're on that side, you probably have a better argument than somebody who's trying to do a harm and make people live in unpleasant conditions. But the nuances of those arguments are what get lost, and it's very difficult to convey that through music and lyrics. Hopefully you can. And man, I hope we can talk about this for the rest of our lives. The only other thing that comes to mind is, Carl, when you're talking about hearing people that don't have, they can't listen, and maybe, I forget exactly how you said it, but is that a function also partly of we're old dudes and a lot of other old dudes might be in our thing? And when you speak to human beings of your cohort, they do, as they age, tend to narrow their views, and maybe talking to people in your Angelspit as a new endeavor with 18 to 24-year-olds had a different vibrance and flexibility.
Yeah, that's actually a very relevant point, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's just another tool to continue fighting against in your own calcification, if there is any. I mean, I hope I do. I like being here for that encouragement, certainly.
Thank you. Alex.
I forgot what I wanted to say, but I think I want to give a mission statement. I want to step on people's toes, but I always want to do it from a point of compassion.
All right, good on
Mosh
you.
pit ethics.
Yeah. We're teachers and mentors. It's funny, and then we're probably getting close to wrapping it up, and I really thank you for the positivity of this. I was listening to someone who I can't even say his name, because if I even say his name, I'll get in trouble. But I was listening to his one of his rants, and I overwhelmingly disagree with what this guy says about climate change, because climate change is fucking real. Anyway, he made this comment about don't pursue happiness, build an ark, because there's a flood coming. And I was thinking about this, and I absolutely fucking agree. And he was saying how that ark is the preparation for when relationships break down, when your job breaks down, when you break down. Build that ark to save yourself, your loved ones, and your community. And I was just thinking how, he's very Christian orientated. And I was just thinking how, it's this kind of wisdom that I fucking agree with that. That's a really, in itself, a really good reason to be just going, always be open to what other people are saying. With your sledgehammer and your angry music. Shut up, Carl. Ivan?
Yeah, I think part of the problem, and I'm going to quote Idiocracy on this one: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Unfortunately, like the vast majority of humanity has decided that they'll either follow or get out of the way. And when you do that, the only people who decide that they're going to lead are sociopaths, because sociopaths love being in that kind of position. And it turns out that 99% of the time, they will turn out to be, well, what they are, horrible people. I grew up with the very distinct advantage of, living in a world where everybody that was supposedly, had authority over me was very obviously evil, or really not, they did not have my back. And as a result, at a very young age, I just sort of started assuming that they were probably full of crap, and that I should not, just blindly agree with them, because it was going to put me personally in a bad place. So I've always been kind of, this person put in a lot of time to become a teacher, so therefore they're right. No, that doesn't mean they're right. They're just as capable as me, as for being lazy. Or this person's a policeman, they put in all that time to learn. No, you just put in time. That's all it meant. Stop it. Just, let's leave me alone. I will do no harm. Please return me that favor. And I like living in a world where people aren't getting canceled left and right. I like freedom of speech, like I like free beer, because when you let people who have bad ideas just express them, you can quickly find out who the assholes are. And now it's nice and easy then. I ran a really large goth mailing list for ages back in the 90s, and in subtotal I kicked one person off the list, and I had a lot of people saying stupid shit on there, and it was everyone was like, oh, you should kick them off, and it's like, oh no, please let them dig deeper, because now everybody does know.
Awesome. Thank you. Raz, what you got?
I didn't even realize the Idiocracy reference, but I've heard John Roderick say it as keep moving and get out of the way. I try to do that.
Cool. Thank you. I'm gonna close this and we're gonna rate to MTV TV. Here's my closing thoughts. Whether I agree with you or everybody else here or your friends or your family agree with you, doesn't fucking matter. You have a point of view and a perspective that's come from your experience on this planet. So you voice it. You shoot that off. You shoot off your mouth. Have tenacity, because whatever you are saying and however you're saying it, somebody somewhere needs to hear it. And you're probably never going to hear feedback from that person. You're probably never going to hear that person say, man, that song fucking kept me going. You're never going to get it. Just keep doing it. But before I leave, here's Vince. Oh, you're muted.
If Vince could find the unmute button, he'd say something. All right, my apologies. I didn't show up to the show today like I meant to. I fell asleep in my chair after I got up and got ready to come to the show. So it was a little late, but I needed to be here because it's the last live show before, like, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, coming back in March. Going to
This is the last time we're going to be live so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone's hanging out on the Discord.
Okay. And I've got a release coming out March 3rd. Bandcamp will be at least 4 songs, and the later Spotify release will be at least 3. I may have an extra one in the bag, but I've got a Bandcamp exclusive one coming with that, and it'll be $1 for the whole release. And Memento Mori. It's remember that we all die. So I took several. Interesting, you were talking about experimental things. I took several new approaches to things with this record. I produced about a third of it on my phone without any help from anything else. I just generated synth sounds with my phone for one track and all the drums for another track. So, doing some new things, trying to do something closer to what I started with, where I've got guitars and more stuff, because I haven't done that in a long time. So I got to record some guitars actually today. That's half the reason I needed to get in the studio today. But yeah, that'll be out March 3rd. And that was the information I felt I needed to tell whoever was listening at the moment, because I'm not going to be able to do that for a minute. So that's it. DJ Underminer, Memento Mori, March 3rd. Also, same day as the release, should be, well, the official release, same day as the official release, March 15th, will be the music video for the track I gotta finish first before I throw the video the rest of the way together. And also, March 3rd, when the album drops, there will be the stems available on Bandcamp to download for free, because I can't afford any more cloud storage. So I'm going to make my remix stems available through Bandcamp, because I don't have to pay extra to upload those there. And then people can get them for free, and I will be able to collaborate that way for remixes for this one. I've already got 2 songs with stems packed, but I got to finish out the rest of it before I start making it available.
Awesome. Good on you, Vince. When they become available,
lots of things I'm doing, lots of things I have to say.
When they're on Spotify, let me know so I can put it on the Industrial Incision playlist.
Well, absolutely, yes. That's the plan.
Which I will actually put up here to remind everybody that you need to know about it. That this is a fucking awesome playlist and it rocks so fucking hard. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us. And bookmark this fucking Twitch. Man, every word I say is just pushing Facebook further and further away from me. There you go, Angelspit's Twitch. We're back on the 1st of March because I'm going to Australia to hang out with my parents and wallabies. We're rating to MTV TV because MTV TV rocks. You rock. Peace be with you. And we're going to hang around here and talk. Bye.